Hello and welcome to today's episode of Rainer on Leadership, your online home for leadership lessons and advice for the local church. I am one of your hosts, Sam Rainer. I have the other host here with me, the most holy Reverend Dr. Rainer. That's you, Dad. Otherwise known as Dad.
Dad,
but for those of you listeners, if you see him in public, it's probably best if you don't call him Dad. That just might be a little weird.
It's weird. Stay away from it. Don't hug me.
Didn't you get a T-shirt recently that said, or did someone send that to you? It had a cactus on it or something, and it said, "I don't like hugs." Is that what it said? Do I remember that right?
Yeah, something like no hugging or I'm not a hugger, something like that with the cactus on it. Yes, it was sent to me by me.
Oh, well, we'll be coming in town for soon enough, me and my family. So I want to see you wearing that T-shirt. I want to get
not around family. I love hugging my family. Love hugging my grandkids.
Well, no. I'm just saying, I want a selfie with you in that T-shirt so I can put it out there on social media. I know you love hugging your grandkids. I know that.
I do. And my daughters-in-law.
And they are worthy.
Yes. And whoever is married to them.
Your sons. But
yeah, that's right.
We are long since forgotten. Grandkids, marriage and grandkids have since caused us to be, kind of second tier. But that's okay. We understand.
Yeah,
it's as it should be.
It's third tier, but that's okay.
Okay.
All right, let's get to the program.
Yeah, we've got a great topic for today. We're going to be talking about ministry resumes, and you might think, is this a bit archaic? Do we still need to be talking about resumes? Do people still do resumes? And they do. They do. I mean, if you are interviewing for a ministry position, if you're interviewing for a church, I would say 95% of churches are going to request a resume. I mean, I don't have a hard data on that, but I'm just assuming that the vast majority of churches, whether you're working through a search firm or whether you're working directly with the search committee, or some board of elders, probably going to ask you for your resume. Would you agree, Dad?
I would totally agree. And I would say that it is the one thing that can eliminate you quickly. So we've talked about this in the past. We've written about it in the past. We've got some updated information for this podcast and for those on YouTube videocasts. So it's still not just relevant, it is highly relevant. But we got to thank our sponsor.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It's a good segue. You should put your education first. That's one of the first things on the resume. And it makes sense because if you went to Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary, then you would want that front and center on the resume because it's such a prominent institution. It's so widely respected. How do you like that for a segue? That's one of the better ones I've done.
Not only do I like it, but we record these podcast videocasts in batches. And after this one, we're going to do an interview with Keith Getty. And he does one of the best Danny Akin imitations you've ever heard.
Oh, should we? And for the listeners who don't know, Dr. Akin is the president of Southeastern Seminary.
I was going to imitate Keith doing it, but I will leave that for a future podcast.
You were going to imitate Keith Getty impersonating Dr. Akin.
So the Irishman who talked rapidly impersonating the South Georgia president who's in North Carolina.
Well, we'll just have to leave that for Keith because he does it so well. But I do want to tell you about Southeast. They are committed to helping you get the training you need to pursue your ministry from anywhere around the world. That's why they are waiving the application fee if you are a listener to this. So go to sebts.edu, and when you check out, use the coupon code CHURCHANSWERS, plural, Church Answers, plural, one word, and they'll waive the fee. So no matter what stage of life's journey you find yourself in, they want to help take you on that next step and getting equipped to disciple and teach others. So in coming to Southeastern, you will find a seminary that isn't just about theological education, it's about ministry preparation. So sebts.edu. That's where you can go find out. Use that coupon code Church Answers, get you a free application. Can't beat that.
No space, Church Answers.
No space, Church Answers, and plural. All right, so let's talk about resumes. And the reason that I believe that this is so relevant is because there is a reshuffling. We're talking about resumes because of reshuffling. A lot of people are looking for ministry positions. There is going to be a lot of churches that have openings, and there's going to be a lot of people moving. And we've talked about that in previous episodes, so we don't want to rehash some of that. You can go listen to previous episodes. You can go read some articles that we've written on this. But there are many pastors that are considering leaving churches, and many churches that are looking to fill open positions. So resumes are going to be out there, and I think it's important that we talk about this. So the first thing that you need to note is that you should follow the instructions when applying for a ministry position.
Please follow the instructions. The moment you start deviating and saying, I'm going to add something or I'm going to do something different, is the moment that you are eliminated. And I don't mean that you are taken from the face of the earth, but you're no longer a candidate. If you don't.
So if they say send a PDF, what should you do?
Send a Word doc.
Send a PDF.
Send a PDF. Exactly right. Send a PDF.
If they say send it to this email, you send it to that email.
Yes.
Follow. And you may say, well, duh, we know this. But how many times have we heard stories from the church's perspective where resumes got lost, somebody didn't get an interview, and the reason was they just didn't follow the stinking instructions.
Exactly. Do that, because this is total speculation. It'll become hard research the moment I say it, but this is total speculation. I'm going to say probably 1 out of 10 do not follow instructions. That would be experiential anecdotal.
It would be anecdotal as well, but I've done a lot of interviewing, and I've hired a lot of positions in my time as a manager, as a leader, and 1 in 10 sounds about right. There's always that, there's a word I want to use like doofus, but I'm not going to say it. That just, it's just like, well, it's so easy. It's so easy. What are you doing? It's like we ask for this and you send us something else. And it's just like, I don't want to hire you. I don't care how good your resume is. I don't want to hire you.
Let me give you a kind of a segue path of that. That would be, you get the instructions and then you turn around and ask the church a question that is in the instructions.
It's even worse.
I have that opportunity.
And every professor who's ever taught a class, it's in the syllabus.
Yes.
It's in the instructions. All right, I think you get the point now. Hopefully, if you're that person who thinks you're just going to be a little different and do things differently, maybe this will help. The other thing that I would say is keep your resume to a couple of pages. Don't send the CV, which is pronounced, I can never pronounce the Latin.
Curriculum vitae.
Curriculum vitae, I think, is the way that it is said. But I'm not scholarly enough to know. Don't send.
We both have PhDs, and we're still both not sure.
Yes. Well, I mean, it's like the word Habakkuk or Habakkuk. You just got to say it confidently.
Yes.
I don't think anyone really knows how to pronounce it. You just got to say it confidently.
It's in Hebrew without syllabic instructions.
Yeah. So, don't send the long version. Send the shorter version. A couple of pages is plenty. If you have a boatload of experience and you're a veteran pastor, it might be 3, particularly if you've written a lot or if you've got some books that you're including. But don't send a lot of information. It's not going to get read. It's just going to get tossed aside. So 2 to 3 pages.
That conversation that I had with someone whose name I will not mention, who received a resume, and it was 2 pages, but it included about 100 pages of attachments of articles he's written. Yes.
Wow.
That was not in the instructions either. How about this photo thing, Sam? What do we do there?
Yes, I would. So typically, this is a faux pas, including a photo of your family. In most industries, would be a no-no. But I think with ministry, you should. I think that people kind of want to see. Now they're going to stalk you on Facebook anyway, but I think including a photo is a good thing. What do you think, Dad?
I think for family, it is a good thing, but be careful what kind of photo that you're putting there. If you're trying to be humorous with your family picture and maybe one of your children has his or her finger in their nose, that's probably not the best thing to do. Or if you're in a goofy picture and at Disney World trying to show goofy faces, that's not the thing to do. do what is typically a Christmas family photo. Typically, now,
Agreed.
I've seen some bozo Christmas family photos, but typically, go look at Amy Jordan's family's photo every year, Christmas photo. I don't know where, if she posted it. Well, I think she's posted it Facebook before.
Well,
But
you know,
look at your photo.
if Amy, just Amy is in studio with us, and she helps produce the show. Just for those of you who may not know her, if Amy is anything like my wife, she is not thrilled at all that we have just said go look at photos of her family, because my wife's all private about that. She's like, you shouldn't be posting photos of our children, blah blah blah. So,
That's
but
true. Sorry, Amy.
yeah,
I can always edit it.
well, she says it's fine. I would say make it professional, make it classy, make it a good photo, because they're gonna want to see that. And you know, it is a faux pas in other industries, but I think a valid thing to do in ministry. The other thing that I would say is a cover letter needs to include your ministry goals and your objectives. I would not put that in the resume, and that may seem like a ticky tack thing, but I do believe that a cover letter is kind of just stating what your vision is and why you would be applying is a good idea. Maybe a paragraph or two.
Well, it may be
that
that your resume would normally lend itself to an academic position, and you're applying to be a pastor. And even though you've tried to adjust it somewhat to appeal to a local church, that you need to say, hey, I've been in academia for a while and my goal is, or vice versa. So
right.
there's the opportunity in the cover letter to say so.
Yeah, get out in front of some questions that could come up. And if somebody was looking at your resume, you don't want people assuming things of you. So go ahead and deal with the obvious issues where wrong assumptions could be made, and very briefly state that in a cover letter. And that's going to help you tremendously, because they may say, well, why would he want to leave this position? Or, he's at a much bigger church than we are. Certainly this is not a serious resume. And go ahead and get those potential questions
in the room addressed
out of the way. Yeah, address the elephant in the room. That's a great way to put it. Now, I know this one is your pet peeve. Moving on to
this one is an misspelling. Do you know some people misspell on their resumes? We've got spell check. We've got editors. We've got Grammarly. How can someone misspell something on a resume?
It is shocking, because
I know
resume.
that's not the point, but that's just. I should not get so excited about grammar, Sam. It's a weird thing.
Well, here's the thing about grammar is it shows attention to detail.
And it shows attention to detail.
But you do like grammar, and it shows thoughtfulness. It shows thoughtfulness and care. And a resume typically is not a lot of words. It doesn't include a whole lot of verbiage. And it's about you. So if you can't even get you right, that's a problem. That's a major, major problem. So have an editor look at it. Yes, use Grammarly is a great tool. I use it for just about everything that I do. It's not infallible, though. So, just note that some of the suggestions aren't always right. And random capitalizations are the worst offenses.
They are. And quite frankly, people don't know that they are offending. Oh, there are all kind of random capitalizations that take place. And I guess I can get so excited about that becomes my pet peeve. I mean, why? For example, I go to a Methodist church. Church is not capitalized. If I go to First Methodist Church, it's the title. It is capitalized. But oh my goodness, church is capitalized and not capitalized in wrong times, in wrong places. And that's just one of many examples. I was in an organization one time that supposedly did this kind of stuff, you should know. And I would go to presentations and there would be random capitalizations in the meeting by the editors and the publishers. And I'm just shaking all over. I thought we understood this stuff. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So random capitalization is a pretty bad one. I would say subject verb agreement is my particular one that I just find abhorrent.
Then we both think it is. That's correct.
Yes, yes. Subjective versus objective pronouns.
Yes.
Like, you know,
Would you give this smartphone to I? No. Would you give this smartphone to me?
me and I are often mixed up. I is a subjective pronoun, me is an objective pronoun. So you want, and the improper use of the reflexive as well. Myself, yourself, things like that.
Myself used as a subject. Sam and myself went to Texas.
Yes.
You didn't. You never went to Texas if it's Sam and myself.
Yeah. So if you're sitting here going, I don't know any of these rules, I am completely lost. You need an editor.
By this time, they cut off the podcast or the video and they moved on. This is crazy. They're talking.
There are other podcasts.
Capitalization.
There are other podcasts that cover grammar. Actually, those are some of my favorite YouTube videos.
And you and I can be nerds in this area.
We can, but the point is that it shows thoughtfulness. It shows care. You know, you're going to have a typo in your life at some point. You just want to make sure.
Just a few.
Yeah, you just need to make sure.
Book number 40. Just a few.
It's going to happen, but you just got to make sure that the resume is as tight as it can be and it looks good. And the way that it looks good is proper grammar. Inevitably, there's going to be somebody making a decision on that resume that cares deeply. I know I do. And if I'm hiring, that is something that I am looking for. And if you have not taken care with grammar, it just shows that you're not going to take care with other things. And they're not willing to learn. You're just not willing to learn. So I would say if you don't know grammar well, get an editor, be careful, read it several times, and then send the resume. Now, this next one, grammar is not a character issue. It's not an integrity issue. But this next one is, and it's hyperbole, and I can be guilty of this, speaking in hyperbole to make a point. And I assume that most people know when I'm doing it. You know, it's obvious I'm speaking in hyperbole, right? Well, not always.
There were thousands of people there to hear me. Yeah, all dozen of them.
Well, that may be a lie. I mean, there's just, okay, that one's just a lie.
Okay.
Using words like greatest or best. If you're talking about adjectives, be careful with your back to grammar lessons. Be careful with your adjectives, particularly the superlative adjectives. I am the greatest.
Sam and myself don't do that.
Yeah.
Still want to go back to reflexive pronouns.
Well, Dad, there are lots of stories about people who, quote unquote, exaggerated their resume a little bit. One of them I know got hired and then got fired after the fact, and then some of them didn't get hired in the first place. I would just be very careful with hyperbole and make sure that you are accurate while every interview is you bragging on yourself. Every resume is you bragging on yourself. That's just by design what it has to be. Avoid the hyperbole, and I will just add this as well. Just generally avoid it on social media because you're going to get a social media check. That is very common practice now for people who are hiring for any position, not just ministry, not just churches, to dig deep into your social media, to look at all of your replies and your comments, and you had better be ready to defend them. And if you are out there like attacking individuals, speaking in hyperbole online, drawing attention to yourself in needless ways, then I've heard a lot of stories of, we loved everything about this person except for their social media feed, and we didn't hire them because of that.
Just remember, there are social media services that can find all of that which has been deleted, and they're screenshots. So don't think that you can put something out there and pull it back. You can't. Yeah,
and no one knows that better than you, Dad.
Thank you.
I think I've told this story before, but my father, back when Twitter was still SMS based, where you could text your tweet, if I remember right, would sometimes confuse his text messages.
Well, that's because Twitter went to the top of the feed. And I would be texting you or your brother something, and all of a sudden Twitter's there, and I'm going, oh no! Bring it back.
Those were our favorite days. And back to your point of screenshots, there are a few Thom Rainer screenshots that are still out there.
And I saw one yesterday.
That they don't have context. They don't have because it was meant to be a text, and it went out as a tweet. Someone grabbed a screenshot, and then there's this the conspiracy theories built around these things, Dad.
Yes, I know. I have seen some of those, and if they only knew what they don't know,
Exactly.
It would burst all the balloons that still exist out there about it. But I'm not going to say anything because it'll draw more attention to it. And why don't you be quiet and let's go to the next point?
Right? It's just so funny, and I love looking at it because they're so
So
wrong.
we're running out of time, and you're still wanting.
All right.
We got 2 more points and sponsors to go.
Yes, tell a story about your ministry. Don't just use numbers. Numbers are important, and people are likely going to want to know, okay, how large is your church that you're shepherding now, or how big is your ministry, or how many people do you manage? What was the size of the budget? Those are all very important questions, and they're going to ask them, but don't just use numbers. Tell a story. And some of the best resumes that I've seen aren't just a list of where they've worked, but they have 2 or 3 sentences beneath them that explain how God worked. Here's what God did while I served. And those are, put a little bit of a story on your resume. Let's say you've served at 3 or 4 churches. Highlight some of the best things that God did in those churches, and just tell that story. And they're probably going to ask about it. So that's one way. Rather than speaking in hyperbole or trying to prop up your numbers, just tell a good story.
By the way, I was on Church Answer Central today, one of my favorite places to be every morning. And someone asked me about a narrative budget, and I was able to give them an example of it. And basically, a budget is nothing but numbers for a church. But he was very interested in doing a narrative budget that told a story behind the numbers, had the numbers, but told the story as well. So there's another comparable to what you're saying.
Yeah.
And this last point.
The last point, very simple, very simple. Never use the phrase references available upon request. Don't use it. It screams, if you're really serious about me, then I'll go find some people to say some nice things. Like just put your references there so that they can start the process.
Or it screams, I don't have any right now, and I'm too lazy to go get them.
Or laziness, just flat out laziness.
Or once I go get them, then you'll have some good ones. And by the way, just another note on references. Make sure your reference approves. And I got this contact from some big church in the Northwest, and they had decided to pursue this pastor based upon my strong recommendation. I didn't know who the dude was.
And they're going to call. They're going to call. Most good employers will call the references and then even ask those references for additional references. That's just how it goes. That's just normal. So put your references on there, put their phone numbers, make sure you ask ahead of time. I can't tell you how many times I've had people call me, do you know so-and-so? And I'm like, yeah, I know them. Well, they're a reference. I'm like, I don't know anything about that. And it just makes you look really bad.
It does.
So put your references.
By the way, let me say this. Don't get a blanket reference permission, because 2 years from now, I will have forgotten that I gave you permission.
Yeah.
Hey, can I just use you whenever I have something? No, let me know when there's something specific going on, so I know it might be coming.
Yeah, good point. And we certainly want to talk about Tyndale. We love our sponsor, Tyndale, and we want to talk about Another Gospel by Alyssa Childers, and it details her journey seeking truth in response to progressive Christianity. It's hit a nerve across the country. Lee Strobel calls it the most influential book you will read this year. So right there, we know this is an important book. Alyssa has dedicated her life to God, but all of that was deeply challenged when she met a progressive pastor. So Another Gospel describes her journey as she wrestled with questions that struck at the core of the Christian faith and found her way back to truth. So readers are going to learn how to stand firm in their biblical beliefs in the face of progressive Christianity. You're also going to learn how to respectfully identify and respond to false beliefs that are infiltrating the church and threatening historic Christianity. So in a culture of endless questions, we need solid answers. Go check out Another Gospel by.
We got the link in there.
Link in the show notes. AlyssaChilders.com/Another Gospel should take you there, but you can click the link as well.
Yeah, you got it. You had some good advice there, Sam.
I think so. Thanks again for joining us today here on Rainer on Leadership. Be sure to watch on YouTube, subscribe on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasting, and join us online at churchanswers.com, where we are growing healthy churches together.